Welcome to another edition of Coffee with Kevin, where we interview unique and interesting business owners, both in our locale and in our region, who are making a difference throughout this whole COVID-19 crisis. And my guest today is Jake Hanes. He is the owner of ActionTax in in Auburn, Washington, and he is the author of the soon-to-be Amazon #1 bestseller, 7 Strategies of Highly Effective Business Owners. I will provide a link below this video for you to purchase this book. Jake, well, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for inviting me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about you. How in the heck did you get into this whole accounting business thing, and what made you decide to go from accounting to be an actual business owner? Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I have been very much an entrepreneur all my life, which is kind of an odd combo. The CPA who's also an entrepreneur. I've owned, bought and sold several businesses, clear back from when I was a kid in high school, had that lawn mowing business and was making money, having fun, working hard. It was actually adjustment to go from being outside to working indoors. But I do love being a CPA, and I love being there for my clients and all of these many different kinds of entrepreneurs, helping them succeed in their business.
That's great. So what was it that, with your background, you obviously were a staff accountant. What was that moment in time when you realized I shouldn't be working for somebody else as an accountant? I needed to be my own firm owner. What point was that?
Well, I'm kind of somewhat of an anomaly. I did not do well in private accounting, working for a boss. And I remember this one time I started coaching with you, and you told me to read a book, and the E-Myth. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And in this book, it identifies the 3 kinds of individuals: the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. And I'm reading through this, and it just resonates with me. I just completely get it, and I understand, like, this is cool. And I read the part about the entrepreneur, and I'm a little bit shocked that there's something that actually, it describes me so closely. And I gave it to my wife, and I said to Carrie, Carrie, this is just interesting. You got to read this. And so she takes it and she opens it up, and she's a very fast reader, and she goes through and she scans through it and she reads it, and she kind of looks at me and she hands me the book and she just walks away. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? What'd you think? How was it? And she looks back at me as she's walking away, and she just says, just straight up, she says, I finally found something that describes my husband. I'm very much the classic entrepreneur, and so, like I say, it's a thrill to work with many different kinds of entrepreneurs and people who want to be entrepreneurs. Because I remember, it takes a business coach to make anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur but maybe doesn't have the skill set to get to that point where they truly can be a successful entrepreneur. And I learned that early on by working with you, Kevin. It wasn't about a year into business that we got connected. And of course, when we got connected, I got to tell this little story. I had come from private accounting, and I had come from this industry where there would be maybe 100 employees, and I'm leading this accounting department, and I'm working hard, and there would be these guys that would come in and say, these management companies, and they come in and say, you got to make these 40,000 changes to your business, and then you'll be highly successful, and they charge you $100,000, and they drive off in their vehicles with the money, and you'd be stuck with the mess. And so I'm now running my teeny tiny little business. And in comes this business coach, and he says, well, I want to coach you and help you succeed. And I'm like, I don't need a coach. And he said, well, you do it. And, just to kind of show you, let's set a few goals of what you like to do now. Now, Kevin didn't know that I had already set 100 lifetime goals in my life way back when I was a teenager. I'm like the goal master, right? Or at least I thought I was at that time, right? I'm like, I don't need that, Kevin, and he's like, well, let's just set a few goals. And I'm like, okay, whatever will get you out of my office. So I set these goals and I with him and he promises, he says he'll come back in a month, and I'm like, sure. And sure enough, a month later, there's Kevin. And he sits down, he says, now, how'd you do with your goals? And I'm like, oh, kind of forgot all about those. And he says, after a conversation, he says, you really need a coach. And I'm like really leery about this, but I'm like, okay, fine. I'll try it. And we're going to do this for 1 month and see how it goes. And in that month, we succeeded in a number of great things in my business. For quite a while, we were going and going and going. And we had made a promise that if things went well, that I would give him a referral for his business, right? And now here's the CPA that works with, I had a very small CPA firm at the time, but here's the CPA who, the clients trust me to do the right thing for them, for their taxes and all this. And Kevin says, okay, you need to give me a referral. And I'm thinking, whoa, if Kevin doesn't work out for me well, that's going to really bode well. I'm going to probably lose that client. In fact, there's pretty much a guarantee. They might even be a little PO'd that I gave the referral. So I was ultra leery, but I had this customer who was really struggling, and he had a company that was in the construction industry, and he was definitely struggling, and I wanted to help him, but I just didn't know what to do. So kind of like, let's just ditch effort. Let's see if Kevin can do something for him. And I gave him the contact information, and about 3 weeks later, I get this phone call, and this client calls me up, and wow, I am ready to backstep myself out of this mess that I have got my client into. And he says, Jake, you gave me this referral of this coach, his business coach, and I'm like, yeah, how's it going? And he kind of, says a few more things, and he says, Jake, why didn't you refer me to this coach like a year ago? And I'm like, I only met him a few months ago. But it worked out very well for him. And since that time, I have referred Kevin to untold number of business owners. And Kevin and I work very well to help these business owners succeed. I tell Kevin about this client, but it's always kind of to my detriment, because I say, Kevin, there's this client that you got to go see. He needs some help. And within about a week or two, that client is coming to me saying, okay, I need all these financials. I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this. And Kevin says, I need this stuff by tomorrow. And I'm like, wow. Well, I guess we got to get to work for you, don't we? But it's good. It's good for the client to have a coach. It's been great for me, just as a side note, to have a coach for many years. And I'm sorry I dragged on that, Kevin. So carry on.
And that's okay. No, I love those stories, because I still remember the reluctance that you had, and yet I could see the lights were turning on. And one of the things that you and I talked about right off the bat is making you unique. Because there's a perception out there that a CPA is a CPA, or an accountant is an accountant is an accountant. So what is it that makes ActionTax totally unique and different from any other CPA or accounting firm out there? What would you say?
So, I remember we worked hard on this, unique selling proposition idea. And you're right. It was hard to come up with what is it that makes me unique. My industry is so standardized, so regulated, so controlled. And Kevin's like, you need a unique selling proposition. And I'm thinking, what do I say? I do the numbers more accurate than the next guy. And it did. It took a while. But what I began to recognize was that as an entrepreneur, I was there to help the business owner go to the next level in their business by helping them really cut some costs. And we started to focus on what are the big picture things that a business can be doing to cut their tax bill, right? That, excuse me, and we found a way to, one of the things we found to do was to help a business set up an S corporation and do that retroactively. And that has saved some of our clients in the tens of thousands of dollars in tax bill. And then as a unique selling proposition, we work on giving the whole picture, not just the basics of the taxes, but the full picture of a good financial statement and some consulting with that, and the entrepreneurial mindset of how we consult with them related to their financial statement, and the with all the basics that are there, give them that extra edge and tools that they need to go truly bring their business to the next level. And a lot of times that is involved working right with you, Kevin, engaging your services with that client. And Kevin has been very generous to give to me over the course of time some of the resources that he uses. And so I give these to the clients, and it's been great for the clients to get a good taste of some of the things that Kevin can do. And sometimes they don't use Kevin's services, and that's perfectly fine with Kevin. Sometimes they take the resources that I give to them and they don't do anything. Other times we kind of go over it a few times and that's it. Other times they are full in and they hire Kevin and they work with us, and all of those bring differing results for different businesses. But we look to kind of give them that full picture. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think that what makes you unique is that so many people get frustrated with your classic green eye shade CPA who is nothing more than looking at numbers. And I think one of the great values that you bring is that you are a CPA who thinks on a much bigger scale than a classic CPA. And what I love about ActionTax is that you and your team always step back and see a much bigger picture and advise the business owners not on just strictly tax strategies, but all the other strategies that make a business successful. And you do not know how many times I have talked with people that said, you know what, I was really frustrated with my CPA. I felt like they were just a one-trick pony, but I go into ActionTax and it's like they're looking at things from such greater angles and unique angles. And they said, I will never go back to another traditional CPA because ActionTax and Jake Hanes, I know, are thinking differently and that they want success for my business as a whole, not just tax reduction.
In relation to that, Kevin, my book talks about the 7 strategies of highly successful business owners, talks about how you need to be forward thinking and you need to set that strategic plan and put those goals in place. And if you do those things, you get to the next level, right? Yeah. One of the big things that we often talk about is how advertising is an investment. And advertising, is not the classic expense of your business, and you should not necessarily decrease your advertising. Now, you should fine tune your advertising and identify that and make sure that your advertising is working for you by testing and measuring the results of your advertising, right? So you might cut out a lot of advertising if it's not working for you, but recognize that it's an expense, it's an investment to the business, not an expense. And we always talk about that, with the clients, because they're like, oh, I've got to be more profitable. And we look at it, and sometimes they're spending no money on advertising, and other times they're way overkill. Then if I see them spending, this amount of percentage on advertising and their revenue is not increasing, then we know we've got some issues, and it's going to take some work to find out what they are. But that is such a different approach than looking at the numbers and saying, oh, what's your your current ratio and what's your profitability percentage and what's all this stuff. We look at the whole picture and come up with some strategies to move forward and to actually grow the business.
Yeah, and that's something I appreciate. So let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's bring it back to today. So tell me how has the whole COVID-19 economic issues, how has that affected your business?
Well, I have not been as affected as others. I was initially told that our business was to be closed during the COVID thing, and I sent in a thing to basically dispute that. And I just says, I'm doing taxes that are giving people refunds that they need, and I'm doing a little bit of payroll for those that are still having employees, so do I need to stay open or do I close? And I was given the okay to stay open, and so we've been providing those services still for clients. But our work has cut down. We are down a big chunk. But one of the things that we have actively done is help people apply for the PPP funds, as well as to get the emergency grant and to help some get the SBA loan that's available from the government. And in conjunction with that, I actually have been working with the National SBA Association, connected with their not webinars, but their conferences that they were holding, and they have been searching for a way to reconcile this and make sure that it is utilized properly, or that the loans is effectively forgiven later on. And so I'm helping my clients not only to get the funds, but to make sure that they use the funds so that they don't have to pay it back, right? And that's been a big process, and it's just something that we're helping our clients out to make sure that they do it right, getting the funds, first of all, to survive, and secondly, utilizing the funds properly so that they don't have to pay it back, or not all of it back.
That's great. And that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you then is there's a great saying that I hear out there, is that smart people learn from their own mistakes and wise people learn from the mistakes of others. What mistakes have you made along the way, and how can other entrepreneurs learn from those mistakes?
Well, in the book, The 7 Strategies, I talk about one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in business, and that was, for me, it was to invest in the wrong kind of business, because I have made several other business investments, bought and sold businesses, and sometimes they have turned out fabulous, and other times they have been a big bomb. So here's Jake, the CPA, investing in a clinical day spa, and I worked hard to make what I thought was the correct investment, because it was a good, profitable business. And so I'm looking at the numbers side of things, right? And saying it's good, it's profitable. It's got, there's 25 employees in this facility, and it's got some structure, and it's there's a lot of good things going for it. And we negotiated a lot, and we bought at the right price. There was a lot going for it. And a year later, I am out of business and $335,000 lost. And it was dramatic. I mean, wow. And that was over the course of a period of time. Boy, it produced a beautiful net operating loss on my taxes to offset a few future years of tax bill. But it was a serious education system to recognize. And I remember talking with Brad Sugars, or not talking with, but getting a webinar from Brad Sugars, where he kind of goes to the next level. Once you've got one business that is a profitable enterprise that runs itself without you, do you want to go to the next level and have and be buying and selling businesses? And he helped me create the formula for which you would do that process. How do you determine what type of business to buy, and is each individual business the right business to buy? And so ever since then, hopefully I will not make that mistake again.
And kind of the follow-up on that mistake is that people and how they fit is such a critical element of success in business. And one of the things I remember about that whole process is that we may have had a great individual. The problem is that individual did not fit into the leadership mode that we needed. And I think this is something that, and you and I have discussed this before, you can have a great business and you can have great processes, but if you don't have a strong, solid leader running the show for you, everything else is null and void.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I remember from that. So what are anything else any inspiring words that you have for business owners and entrepreneurs right now who are struggling in their business and don't see a way out of this COVID-19 process? What can you say to these people that can give them hope and give them direction?
Well, first of all, you want to make sure that you have gotten the funds that are available from the government. We're running out of time on that, but if you've gotten those funds, use them wisely. You need the cash flow, you need the blood of the business to keep going, right? But then second of all, I actually engaged Kevin's services to go and we created 4 webinars, 1 hour short webinars that talked about the multi-step process that we should be going through now to be ready to go strong when your particular economy turns back on and you're allowed to open your doors, and as all the other businesses begin to open and people begin to be able to shop again and all of those things, right? So what you want to do is you want to start strong. Now is the time to do with me, do my continuing education and stay busy that way, to meet and train and work with my staff, and to set up the marketing, do the things that you are working on your business, not in your business. You've got this awesome period of time. It's a long time potentially, right? But you've got a good amount of time to start to do a lot of that quadrant 2, as the 7 Habits book talks about, the urgent, or the not urgent, but very important things that you can do to get your business in an excellent position so that you are on top of your game when the economy turns back on. And that's what I would, it's a multi-step process, and you can listen to our webinars. They're on my website at actiontaxteam.com, and you can absolutely engage with Kevin and get the full scoop on what he presented.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in today, Jake. If people want to try to get a hold of you, how do they contact you?
Well, I have a focus of working with real estate agents, and we work with a few hundred of them. But I work with all small business owners, generally speaking, one-man shows, one-woman shows to, maybe 10 or 15 employees kind of thing. That's kind of been our niche market. We work with a lot of different businesses, a few in different sizes and some big ones, but mostly it's those small business owners. And if you fit in that category, and you'd like to get in contact with us, you can reach me at our website at actiontaxteam.com. There is a place right on the top that says, would you like to schedule an appointment? You can also call us at 253-288-8829. And you can email me at jhanes@actiontaxteam.com. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear some feedback on the video, and look forward to potentially meeting one of you.
Great. Thank you for your time, Jake, and really appreciate you talking to us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.